The night was quiet in the small apartment. The only sound was the hum of the old fridge and the faint buzz of city lights outside. Alex moved through the narrow hallway with a tired sigh. Classes had drained him, and all he wanted was to collapse on the couch. But before he did, he thought about his new roommate. Lyra, she wasn't like anyone else. She wasn't even from Earth. When he first met her, she had introduced herself with that strange, calm voice, her glowing eyes hidden by tinted glasses, her pale skin wrapped in clothes that seemed too heavy for the season. She said she came from far away, but Alex already knew the truth. The college had an exchange program, not just for humans, but for other species who had started studying on Earth. It was supposed to be rare, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Somehow Alex had ended up living with one of them. Lyra was quiet, distant. She always kept the door to her room locked. She never ate in front of him, never stayed in the living room for long. Alex tried not to bother her, but the loneliness in her eyes sometimes broke through that strong shell she kept around herself. That night, he noticed she hadn't eaten anything all day. The takeout food he had left outside her door was untouched. Worry pricked at him. Maybe she wasn't feeling well. Maybe she was sick. He thought about knocking on her door just to ask. He almost decided against it. She valued her space. But something pulled him forward anyway. He tapped lightly. No answer. He tapped again. Still no sound. Lyra? He called softly. Are you okay? Did you eat anything? Still nothing. The worry in his chest grew heavier. What if she had collapsed? What if something was wrong? He hesitated, then put his hand on the doorknob. To his surprise, it turned easily. She hadn't locked it. He pushed the door open, and then his breath froze. Lyra was in the middle of the room, not dressed, not covered, not human. Her body shimmered as if two skins fought for control. One moment she looked like the pale, tall girl he knew. The next, silver blue scales flashed across her arms, glowing faintly in the dark. Her back arched as if she was in pain, her chest rising and falling too quickly. Alex's mouth went dry. He knew he shouldn't look. He knew he should turn away, shut the door, pretend this never happened. But he couldn't move. He couldn't stop staring, not out of disrespect, but out of shock and fear. Not of her, but for her. Lyra gasped and grabbed a blanket from her bed, pulling it around herself. Her glowing eyes met his, wide with panic. You saw, she whispered. Her voice cracked like breaking glass. Alex stumbled back a step, his hands raised. I didn't mean to, he stammered. I just wanted to check on you. I thought you might be sick. Her whole body trembled. The shimmering scales faded for a moment, then came back again as if she couldn't control them. Sweat shone on her forehead. Her teeth clenched. I cannot hold this shape much longer, she admitted, her voice weak. The room felt heavy. Alex didn't know what to do. He wanted to ask questions, but he could see how fragile she was in that moment. This wasn't the proud, distant roommate he had come to know. This was someone breaking apart in front of him. Her hands clutched the blanket tighter. She looked like she wanted to disappear. But what she said next made his heart twist. I thought I could hide it, she whispered. I thought I could survive here. But it's tearing me apart. Her eyes glowed brighter, but this time they weren't just alien, they were desperate. Alex didn't know if he should step closer or leave. Every instinct told him to give her space, but another part of him, the part that couldn't stand to see someone suffering, held him frozen at the door. And then she said the words he never expected. Will you help me? Alex stood frozen by the door, his mind racing. He had expected anger, maybe even violence, but not this. Her trembling voice, her plea for help. The proud alien who always walked with quiet dignity now looked fragile, almost broken. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The only sound in the room was her unsteady breathing, as if every inhale was a battle. The faint glow from her scales flickered like a dying light. I'm sorry, Alex said finally, his voice low, careful, almost afraid it might shatter her. I shouldn't have come in. I wasn't trying to. He swallowed hard. I just wanted to check if you were okay. Her eyes, still glowing faintly, narrowed in pain more than anger. You saw too much, she whispered again, pulling the blanket tighter. This form, this disguise, it is not easy. Every day it hurts me more. The air here, the pull of your world, it weakens me. And now? Her voice broke, her head bowed. Now you know. Alex took a step forward, then stopped himself. He didn't want to frighten her more. She already looked like she was standing on the edge of something she couldn't hold back. "I won't tell anyone," he said quickly. "I promise. I'll keep it secret." But that wasn't what she seemed afraid of. Her hands shook as she pressed them to her face. "You don't understand. My people, if they knew I needed help to survive here, they would call me unworthy. I was trained to endure, to walk among you without weakness. I thought I could manage. I thought I could wear this human shell forever. But this body, it slips. I cannot control it." Her words cut through Alex like knives. She wasn't just scared of him. She was scared of herself. He took a slow breath. "Lyra," he said gently, "you don't have to go through this alone. Maybe I can—" "No," she snapped, then immediately winced as if the effort of raising her voice hurt her. Her shoulders trembled. She looked down again, voice softer. "You cannot understand. You are human, fragile. You cannot carry the weight of this." Alex's chest tightened. It wasn't the insult that stung, it was the loneliness hidden in her words. He could see it in her trembling form, in the way she hugged the blanket like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. "I know I don't understand," he admitted, his voice breaking, "but I can try. I don't want you to suffer like this, not alone." She looked up at him then, her glowing eyes meeting his. There was silence, heavy and deep. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she gave him a look, half disbelief, half desperation. Finally, she whispered, "Why would you help me?" Alex didn't hesitate. "Because you're my roommate. Because you're here and you're hurting and I can't just walk away." "That's not who I am." The blanket slipped slightly from her shoulders, and for the first time she didn't rush to cover the scales that glimmered faintly across her arms. They pulsed like living silver, beautiful and strange. But her face was what struck him most. For all her alien strength, all her otherworldly pride, her expression looked human. Tired, scared, hopeful. She closed her eyes, took a shaky breath, and whispered words that would change everything. "Then stay. Just stay with me tonight." Alex nodded without thinking. He stepped into the room fully now, his fear melting into something stronger, resolve. He sat down on the floor near her bed, not too close, not too far. Just close enough that if she needed him, she could reach out. The minutes passed slowly. Her breathing calmed little by little, though the glow of her scales flickered like embers in the dark. She didn't speak again that night, but once, when the pain made her gasp, Alex reached out and let his hand rest near hers. She didn't pull away, and in that fragile silence, Alex realized something. He wasn't afraid of her anymore. He was afraid of losing her. The night felt longer than usual. Alex stayed on the floor beside her bed, listening to her breathing steady little by little. Every now and then her body twitched as if fighting some invisible storm, but she no longer tried to hide it. She let herself be weak, at least for that moment. When the first faint light of dawn slipped through the curtains, Alex's eyes were heavy from staying awake. He shifted slightly, careful not to wake her. But Lyra was already awake. She sat upright on the bed, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "You are still here," she whispered, her voice full of quiet disbelief. Alex rubbed his eyes. "Of course I am. You asked me to stay." Her lips pressed together. She looked down at her hands, the faint shimmer of scales still visible across her skin. "I thought perhaps you would leave once I fell asleep. Humans are quick to promise comfort, but not many stay when the silence grows heavy." Alex leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "Well, I'm not leaving." "Not if you still need me." Her eyes lifted again, and for a long time she simply studied his face, as if trying to measure how much truth his words carried. Finally, her voice came out soft but clear. "Then I must ask something of you." Alex blinked. "Anything." Her shoulders trembled slightly, though her expression remained calm. "I cannot keep this form much longer without help. Every day the pressure grows worse. The air scratches against my lungs. The pull of your world bends my bones. Even my mind feels heavier. I was trained to endure, to hide among your kind, but I overestimated myself." Alex's chest tightened. She sounded so tired, so close to giving up. "What do you need me to do?" he asked carefully. Her eyes flickered brighter, a spark of hope mixed with fear. "I need someone to help me manage the pain, to remind me to rest, to breathe, to ground myself when my body betrays me. I thought I could carry this burden alone, but I cannot. My pride kept me silent for too long." The words hit Alex harder than any anger could. She wasn't just admitting weakness, she was trusting him with it. This proud alien, who hid behind her perfect human disguise, was laying bare her most vulnerable truth. He hesitated only a moment. "Then I'll help," he said firmly. Lyra's lips parted as if the answer shocked her.
Just like that?
"Yes, just like that." Alex gave a tired smile. "I might not understand everything you're going through, but if staying by your side makes it easier, then that's what I'll do." Her eyes softened, and for the first time since they met, her face showed something more than caution or distance. Gratitude. "Do you know what this means?" she asked quietly. "On my world, to ask for help is to give someone power over you. It is not done lightly." Alex shook his head. "Then maybe your world has it wrong. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger, because it means you're willing to keep fighting even when you can't do it alone." Her hands tightened around the blanket. She looked at him as though his words carried weight she wasn't prepared to hear. The silence stretched, filled only by the early morning sounds of the city outside. Then slowly she reached out from under the blanket, her hand trembling slightly. She didn't touch him, but she placed it close to his on the bed. A gesture small but filled with meaning. "Then you will be the one I lean on," she whispered. Alex nodded. "I'll be here. Always." Her hand lingered near his for a moment longer before she pulled back, her expression caught between relief and fear. She had given him her trust, but she still didn't know what it would cost. But Alex knew one thing for certain. From this moment forward, their lives were no longer the same. He wasn't just sharing an apartment with an alien anymore. He was carrying her secret, her pain, and maybe even her hope. And deep inside, he felt the weight of it settle in his chest, not as a burden, but as a promise he refused to break. The days that followed were unlike anything Alex had expected. Life with Lyra changed the moment he agreed to help her. Every morning he woke to the sound of her muffled breathing, heavy and uneven. Some days she managed to keep her human form steady, her pale skin and tall frame looking almost normal. But other days the disguise flickered. Scales shimmered across her neck or arms, glowing faintly before fading again. Alex quickly learned that those were the hardest days. On one such morning, Alex found her sitting on the kitchen floor, leaning against the counter. Her hands shook as she clutched a glass of water, her chest rising too quickly. "Lyra!" He rushed to her side, crouching down. "What's wrong?" Her voice was faint. "Gravity. It feels heavier today. My lungs burn." Alex steadied the glass in her hand, helping her drink slowly. Then he guided her breath, speaking softly. In, out. Slow down, you're okay. I've got you." Her glowing eyes flicked toward him, filled with frustration. "You should not see me like this." But Alex only shook his head. "I told you I don't care what it looks like. You're not alone anymore." For a moment, her lips pressed into a tight line as if she wanted to argue, but then she leaned her head against the counter, letting him sit beside her in silence until her body calmed. It became a routine. When her skin burned too hot, Alex would wet a cloth with cool water and place it gently against her forehead. When her hands trembled, he would hold them steady, letting her squeeze his fingers until the shaking passed. Sometimes, in the darkest hours of the night, she would lose control of her form entirely. Her body twisted in pain, scales breaking through, her breathing ragged. Those nights terrified him the most. Once he woke to the sound of her choked cry. Rushing into her room, he found her curled on the floor, glowing faintly like broken glass scattered across the dark. "Lyra, I'm here." He knelt down, his arms sliding under her to lift her. She tried to push him away weakly, whispering, "No, you cannot. You'll get hurt." But Alex refused to let go. "I don't care. I'm not leaving you like this." He held her tightly, rocking her gently like one might soothe a child, whispering words he didn't even know he believed. "You're strong. You're going to get through this. Just hold on. I'm here. I'm not letting go." Her body shook violently in his arms, but slowly, her breathing steadied. The glow of her scales dimmed until she finally went limp, exhausted but alive. When he laid her back on the bed, her fingers curled weakly around his wrist. She didn't open her eyes, but her soft whisper reached him. "Do not leave." "I won't," Alex whispered back, sitting beside her until sleep pulled at his eyes too. As days turned into weeks, Lyra began to change in other ways too. She no longer kept her door locked. She no longer avoided him in the living room. Sometimes when she felt stronger, She even sat with him on the couch, her blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders while he watched old movies. Once, halfway through a film, she spoke without looking at him. "I used to think humans were fragile, weak. But you surprise me. You hold me up when even I cannot stand." Alex chuckled softly. "That's not strength. That's just what people do for each other." Her glowing eyes turned toward him, quiet and searching. "Not everyone would. But you did." And though she didn't say it outright, Alex could feel it. Her trust in him was no longer hesitant. It was real. Still, the struggle was far from over. Every night reminded him that her body was fighting a war it might never fully win. And every time he held her through the storm, Alex felt the weight of the promise he had made. He didn't know how long he could keep her safe. He didn't know if she would ever truly recover. But he knew one thing with certainty. He would not abandon her. Not now, not ever. And though Lyra never said it aloud, he could see it in her eyes. She had started to believe him. The storm inside her did not pass in a single night. Weeks stretched on, each day a battle against her own body. But something began to shift. Not just in Lyra's health, but in the space between her and Alex. She no longer tried to hide everything. When the pain came, she no longer shut her door. When her disguise faltered, she no longer ran to cover herself. Instead, she allowed Alex to see the truth, the shimmering scales, the faint glow of her skin, the moments when her breathing turned ragged. And in those moments, Alex never turned away. One evening, after a particularly long day, Lyra sat on the couch, her head resting weakly against the back cushion. Alex brought her a glass of warm tea, setting it carefully into her trembling hands. She accepted it, her glowing eyes soft in the dim light. "You take care of me like I am fragile glass," she whispered. Alex gave a small smile. "Maybe you are glass, but you're not broken. You're just shining differently." Her lips curved into something that almost looked like a laugh, though it was quiet and brief. She sipped the tea slowly, then set it down, her hands folding together. A silence stretched between them, filled with something heavier than words. Finally, she spoke. "I need to tell you something." Alex straightened slightly, sensing the weight in her tone. "Go ahead." Her gaze stayed fixed on her hands. "On my world, weakness is not forgiven. We are trained from birth to endure, to master our bodies and never show fear. To struggle is to fail. To ask for help is to surrender your honor." She paused, her voice softer now. "I thought coming here would prove I was strong enough, that I could walk among humans without faltering. But the truth is, every day I was crumbling inside." Alex's chest tightened. He had guessed pieces of it before, but hearing her admit it made his heart ache. "Lyra," he said gently, "you don't have to be perfect. Not here." Her eyes lifted then, glowing faintly as they met his. "Do you know why I never wanted you to see me like this? Because to me this is shame. My people would call me weak, unfit to represent them. They would cast me aside." Her voice cracked at the end, and for the first time Alex saw tears shimmering at the corners of her eyes. Not human tears. Liquid silver, glowing faintly as they clung to her lashes. He reached out slowly, carefully, placing his hand over hers. "Then let them call you weak. Let them think whatever they want. Because you're still here fighting even when it hurts. That makes you stronger than any of them." Her lips parted, her breath trembling. For a moment she only stared at him, as though trying to understand how he could believe such a thing. Then to his surprise she leaned closer, resting her head against his shoulder. Alex froze for a second, then relaxed, letting her rest there. Her weight against him felt fragile, but also trusting. "I never thought I would need anyone," she whispered, her voice muffled against him. "But I was wrong. You make me want to stay, even when the pain tells me to give up." Alex's throat tightened. He swallowed hard, his hand resting lightly on her arm. "Then stay. As long as it takes, I'll be here. You don't have to face this alone ever again." For a long time they stayed like that, her leaning on him, him holding her steady. Outside, the city lights flickered and the world moved on. But inside that small apartment, something unspoken grew between them. Not just trust, not just friendship, something deeper, something that neither of them had dared to name yet. And when she finally lifted her head, her silver tears had dried, but her eyes glowed softer than he had ever seen before. "Alex," she said quietly, almost reverently, "you are not just my roommate anymore. You are the first person I have ever allowed to see me as I truly am." His heart pounded at her words. He didn't know what their future would look like, but in that moment, he understood one thing: whatever happened next, they would face it together. And for the first time, Lyra truly smiled. The nights had grown heavier. Each day that passed seemed to test Lyra's strength more cruelly. Alex could see it in her eyes, the exhaustion that clung to her, the way her hands shook even when she tried to hide it. He had thought he was prepared for anything after weeks of helping her through the pain. But nothing could have prepared him for the night she almost slipped away. It started suddenly. Alex was washing dishes in the small kitchen when he heard a sharp crash from her room. His heart lurched. Without hesitation, he dropped the plate and ran. When he burst through the door, the sight nearly stopped his breath. Lyra was on the floor, her body twisting violently. Her human disguise was gone, stripped away by the force of her struggle. Scales glimmered across her entire form, glowing brighter than ever before, her chest heaving like she was drowning in invisible fire. Her hands clawed at the ground, leaving marks on the wood, her voice breaking in a strangled cry. "Lyra!" Alex shouted, rushing to her side. He knelt and tried to hold her steady, but her body jerked uncontrollably. "Don't," she gasped, her voice rough, broken. "Don't touch me, you'll get hurt." But Alex ignored her warning. He slipped his arms around her, pulling her close even as her scales burned hot against his skin. He winced at the heat but refused to let go. "You're not going through this alone," he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. "Do you hear me? I'm not letting you fight this by yourself." She thrashed against him, weakly at first, then harder, as though her own body wanted to tear itself apart. Alex held her tighter, grounding her against his chest. He whispered desperately, his words tumbling out without thought. "Breathe with me, Lyra. In and out. Just like before. You're stronger than this. You can make it through. I've got you." Her glowing eyes squeezed shut, tears spilling down her cheeks like drops of silver light. I can't hold it anymore." "Yes, you can." Alex's voice shook, but his grip didn't. "You've held on this long. Just stay with me a little more, please. Don't leave me." The fight inside her raged on. Her body shuddered, her breathing ragged, her scales flickering like lightning beneath her skin. For a terrifying moment, Alex thought he was losing her, that her strength would finally break, but he didn't let go. Even when her heat seared his arms, even when his own chest ached from the weight of holding her, he stayed. And then, slowly, painfully, the storm inside her began to quiet. Her breathing, though uneven, softened. Her trembling eased. Her glowing scales dimmed until they shimmered faintly, like stars fading before dawn. Lyra went limp in his arms, her forehead pressed weakly against his shoulder. Alex's heart pounded, his whole body shaking from the fear of nearly losing her. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice raw. "It's over. You're safe." Her lips parted and a faint whisper escaped. Why do you stay even when it hurts you?" Alex tightened his hold, his throat thick with emotion. "Because you matter to me. Because I won't let you fight this alone. Not ever." For a long moment she didn't respond. Then her trembling hand lifted, weakly gripping the fabric of his shirt. Her eyes opened just slightly, glowing dim but steady. "You, stubborn human," she breathed, almost like a broken laugh. "You will not let me go." "Never," Alex said firmly. "You'd have to tear me away." Her hand stayed on him until her strength finally gave out and her body sagged against him in exhaustion. He laid her gently on the bed, covering her with a blanket, but he didn't move far. He stayed by her side, his hand resting close to hers, watching the rise and fall of her chest with desperate relief. And in that quiet, Alex realized something. It wasn't just about keeping his promise anymore. He wasn't staying because he had to. He was staying because losing her was unthinkable. No matter how alien she was, no matter how heavy her struggles became, she had become the most important part of his life, and nothing in the universe could make him let go. The morning after the storm was quiet. For the first time in weeks, Alex didn't wake to the sound of Lyra's strained breathing or her restless tossing. Instead, when his eyes opened, he found her already watching him. She was sitting up in bed, pale but calm, her glowing eyes soft. The blanket was wrapped around her shoulders and her long silver hair spilled across her chest like a river of light. For a moment, neither spoke. They just looked at each other, the silence heavy with everything they had been through. Finally, she broke it. "You should have let me go last night." Her voice was steady, but there was pain beneath it. Alex shook his head immediately. I couldn't. I wouldn't. Her lips pressed together as though she was trying to hold back tears. I nearly burned you alive, Alex. My body isn't safe. I am not safe. You don't understand how dangerous I am to you. I don't care, Alex said firmly. He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. What's dangerous is you carrying this weight all alone. What's dangerous is you believing you're nothing but your pain. I've seen you fight every day, Lyra. I've seen your courage. Don't tell me you're not worth saving. The words hit her harder than she expected. She looked down, her hand tightening on the blanket. For so long she had believed she was only a burden. On her homeworld, weakness meant shame. On Earth, she feared she was a monster hiding in plain sight, and yet, this human refused to leave, her voice cracked. Why do you keep choosing me? Alex's chest ached at the question. He reached out slowly, carefully, until his hand rested over hers. Her scales were cool now, no longer burning, and she didn't pull away. Because somewhere along the way, he said softly, you became the most important person in my life. You're not just my roommate, Lyra, you're my partner, and I won't let fear decide for me. She lifted her eyes to him then, wide and shimmering. A tear slipped down her cheek, but this time it wasn't from pain. It was something else, something lighter. I don't deserve this, she whispered. You do, Alex said. His voice was gentle but certain. More than you think. The rest of the day passed differently. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to lean on him, not just physically, but in spirit. She spoke of her planet, of the endless expectations she had failed to meet, of the crushing belief that she would never be enough. Her voice shook, but Alex listened without judgment. When she grew quiet, he shared his own fears, the loneliness he carried, the times he felt invisible in a world too fast and too cold. He confessed how meeting her had filled an emptiness he didn't know how to name. And somewhere in those hours of honesty, the distance between alien and human faded. They were just two souls, bruised and tired, holding on to each other in a world that often felt too heavy. That night, Lyra didn't retreat to her corner of the room. Instead, when Alex lay down, she hesitated only a moment before sliding beside him, her head resting cautiously on his shoulder. On my planet, she said softly. Sharing a bed is a bond. Not of desire, but of trust. It means you have chosen someone as your true partner. Alex turned to her, surprised. And you're choosing me? Her glowing eyes met his, steady and sure. Yes, I am choosing you. A warmth spread through his chest, deeper than relief, deeper than joy. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. For the first time, she didn't tense. She melted against him like she had finally found a place she could rest. In the stillness of that moment, Alex realized something. Humanity wasn't just about survival or strength. It was about this, the stubborn will to stand beside someone even when it hurt. The courage to love even when it seemed impossible. And for Lyra, who had believed herself cursed and alone, it was humanity that saved her. Not weapons, not power, just a human heart that refused to let go. As her breathing steadied against him, Alex whispered, You're safe now. Always. Lyra's hand found his, her grip firm despite her exhaustion. And you are mine, she whispered back. They stayed like that until sleep claimed them both, not as alien and human, but as partners who had chosen each other against all odds. And for the first time since she had come to Earth, Lyra finally believed she was home.